Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Happy Tuesday, round two. Fight! So in Fraud or Troll, DMA versus Fraud or Troll, it appears that friend of the channel, Fraud or Troll, has decided to fire his attorney, the boutique attorney. I wonder why. All that money and no results? I wonder why. I mean, obviously I don't know why, but in my year of experience as a family law attorney, the reason why clients change attorneys is either because they're not getting the results they expect, or because they can't afford to keep the attorney that they have, or a combination thereof. Generally speaking, it is dissatisfaction with the attorney's performance. Although shockingly, I have seen people stick with very incompetent attorneys who get very poor results for reasons that I don't understand. Maybe they like the person, maybe they just feel comfortable with them, I don't know. But generally speaking, if you don't think your attorney is doing well, if you think your attorney is giving you poor advice or filing unnecessary paperwork or something like that, it always behooves you to get a second opinion. There's nothing preventing you from taking your case to another attorney to have them tell you why everything that your current attorney, why everything they're doing is absolutely wrong and they never would have done it that way. Now, I do need to caution you when you do that, because if you show 3 different attorneys the exact same set of facts, you're going to get 4 different opinions on how it should be handled. And you could always criticize another attorney. I would have done it different. I would have done that. I try not to criticize things that could just be a difference in choice of tactics, and I usually try to explain to you guys why it could be a tactical or a strategic decision to do it the way they're doing. But I, like every other attorney out there, am not perfect, and I do make mistakes. Speaking of which, the attorney that apparently Fraud or Troll is trying to get subbed in is licensed in California, so that's great. And he's also licensed in British Columbia. Interesting. And of course, just a modicum of digging, you can find out that in 2022, he's been practicing law, I think, for about 12 years now. 10 years or so in California, and like an additional 2 years. I think he joined the BC bar in 2014, if I remember correctly. But he was punished. Yeah, he got his license suspended for 8 weeks in British Columbia for 2 different issues that I think are interesting, to say the least. The first one is, new client came in. He signed the client up. He got a copy of their ID and everything like that, and didn't notice that the name of the person he thought was the client, the first name, was different than the name of the plaintiff who he thought he was representing. All I know is that the person who he thought was his client, first name started with a P, and the person who was the plaintiff, who he thought he was representing, their first name started with a J. That's a problem. Well, he even went so far as to have the person he thought he was his client, let's call that Mr. P, sign an affidavit as Mrs. J. He even took the ID and checked the ID and did notice that a dude with the first name starting with the letter P is not a woman whose first name started with the letter J. Apparently he figured out that the person he thought was his client might not be his client when at court there were questions raised about the sex of his client. Now, Canada, much like California, You can be whatever you want. So a guy could be a girl could be a guy, whatever. It's easy peasy lemon squeezy. So that in and of itself isn't dispositive that his client, his apparently male client, has a female name. But that got him to thinking. And all of a sudden he realized what he'd done, and he notified the court. And he did all the right things from that point. Verified that the person he thought was his client actually had power of attorney, an effective power of attorney to sign things on behalf of the person who actually was the client, etc., etc. So that was one of the two instances. The other instance, and I think they're related because PS was in both, but apparently there was a conflict of interest. And it was a real estate transaction. He represented two people who had conflicting desires for the outcome. And he acted in the interest of one of the two people because the other one of the two people apparently was a bad person with criminal records about real estate transactions and things like that. And so he felt like he couldn't represent that person. But instead of just cutting that person off and saying, I can no longer represent you, which attorneys can do, at least in California, and I'm going to assume that they can do it in Canada as well, considering that's what he eventually did. He strung the guy along, acted on behalf of the one client who he was still acting on behalf of, but accepting payment from the other client. Dubious. Now, attorneys can make mistakes. I get it. You know, there's a lot of ethical issues that come up with being an attorney. We are a very regulated group of people with a lot of rules to follow. Anybody who's an attorney at any time, if the bar decided it wanted to look hard enough, could find something. It's insane how many rules there are for the practice of law. We literally have to take ethics classes. We have to, I think it's like 2.5 hours of ethics classes every 2 to 3 years. I forget how long it is. My reporting was this year, and I had to take ethics classes. And in those ethics classes, they cover like an area, but it's just a huge minefield out there. There's just so much. So I'm not trying to say that this guy's a bad attorney. I don't know. I haven't seen any of his pleadings. I am saying that, there have been some failures in his ability to spot potential issues. Some ethical concerns there. Again, probably, maybe a good attorney. Who knows? We'll see. I sincerely hope that Fraud or Troll vetted him very well. I have a sneaking suspicion that he charges a lot less than the boutique California attorney does. So that'll be good for Fraud or Troll's pocketbook and for the pocketbooks of all the people that Fraud or Troll is encouraging to fund his litigation. But we'll see, there's really only one way to tell if the attorney's good, and that's see the work product he puts out and the results he gets. Now, speaking of which, there's two kinds of results that an attorney can get. One are expected results, and the other is unexpected results. So if you're an attorney and you're representing someone, and you give them an accurate kind of roadmap of how you see this playing out and what you expect the results to be, even if you expect the results to be, well, you're probably going to lose. And then you get those expected results, you probably did your job as an attorney. If you don't lay out that roadmap and you don't tell them the expected results, or if your expected results are wildly disparate from the actual results, then maybe you're not a great attorney. So we'll see how it plays out, and we'll never know what the attorney is telling Fraud or Troll, obviously, because that's privileged information. I mean, unless Fraud or Troll spills the beans, and I don't watch his channel, but knowing how verbose he is, as I make a 10-minute video on a simple substitution of attorney, he may, excuse me, he may be spilling the beans. Leaving that in there. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.